Good day and welcome on back, everybody. It is story time. We're here on Monday. Last Monday, we talked about just random things, what the story is kind of going to be about. Today, we're going to be talking more about ProThor. So, ProThor is the planet. So, just a little bit of a recap. ProThor is the planet that contains everything in our known universe before the Big Bang, where the universe was created, right? So, just a little bit more of a recap. There is the crust, right, where most of this is going to take place. On top of the crust, below that is going to be more like harder, richer, more of the exotic materials, resources, and then below that is just going to be lava. Or it's more of a thicker style lava, not truly melted. And then below that is the lava. And then even below that, there's no real dense core of the planet. In the very center is just a soup. A soup of energy, antimatter, and matter clashing into each other, exploding, causing energy spouts to spew out of areas on the planets that it's already bursted through. So there's already exit points and entry points for this energy soup. And the energy soup is really, really hot, right? It goes back into the planet just to start the process all over again, crashing into each other, causing more energy spouts. There are some points where smaller energy spouts will break through and then crash back down into the planet. Not necessarily making another hole, but just crashing down like a natural disaster, you know. Those are going to be those energy or those kinds of natural disasters like that. There's going to also be kind of earthquakes, but no necessarily volcanic. There are some volcanoes where just the lava breaks through, but nothing too else. There's no clouds, nothing like that, because the sky is just pitch black unless you see an energy spout. You know, the spout rain. But we'll talk about the spout rain in a little bit. So that's what the if you can visualize, that's what the planet looks like with circles and then spouts shooting out, going back in. Like if you look at some pictures of the sun, our sun, you'll see little loops, right? Just picture that on the planet. And around those energy spouts is hot, of course. And it goes in and it shoots out. Like it's looping. Pretty much it's looping. So the environment, let's talk a little bit more about the environments that are going to be there. You're going to have kind of like oceans because there is water on ProThor as well. There's mountains, forest, plains, hills, swamps, you know, normal stuff like that. Each of the environments does have its own unique evolutionary life form. Again, that's all going to be plants. There is going to be creatures, humanoid style plants, which will be following a humanoid variant of these. You got caves deep underground. You got ocean caves, rivers, just normal things like that. Now, for the creatures, you're gonna have insect style creatures. You're gonna have, I guess, normal style creatures, bears, wolves, things like that, you know, felines, canines. There's gonna be spiders. It just depends on the environment, but I will say there are no like real flying. Some of these smaller insects can fly a little bit, but not not to a great deal. Everything is mostly going to be close to the ground. Nothing really leaves the atmosphere or besides the energy spouts that shoot out and shoot in. There are other gases, things do breathe, but unlike us, it's not. They're breathing in oxygen and breathing out carbon dioxide and other gases. It's pretty much inverted, right? So they breathe in the bad stuff, breathe out the good stuff. You know, planty things. The normal planty style things. So let's talk a little bit about the environments. So let's start off with the mountains. The mountain plants are going to be more earthy. They have rocks weaved into them. It's like the plant took the rock, make it armor. You know, that style thing. That's pretty much going to be the main difference to each place. Like the forest one is going to be more barky. They have bark kind of armor that grows off of them. They don't make it. The plains one is more sleek, thin, and more on like the speedy side of things. The ocean ones are going to be a little bit more slimy, meant for staying in the water. They can go out of the water, of course, but they have to return at some point because they'll start drying out. The river ones kind of hybrid between forest or plains, depending on what the river is cutting through. Caves are a little bit more interesting. There's also, let me say, mossy, fungus, moldy type stuff like that too. There's not just those. It's all kinds of different plants and things like that. So there are caves. There are things that live deep within the crust as well, which is a very unique thing. Because no matter where you are, you're going to have food. And I'll go into that more in a second. So there are more like plants that live closer to the volcanoes will adapt to the volcano. They will be able to go next to it, touch it, and stuff like that. They will adapt to it. There is a magic system in place here as well. I'll go into the more magic-y system later. For now, we're just going to stick to a brief description of the creatures and the planet itself, because that's why we're here today, is to talk about the planet. So, and of course, some of the environments that are there, what entails that they yield. But we're going to say the planet is not just pitch black. The sky itself is pitch black, other than the mist, the energy rain, the spout rain, right? So things that are under energy spouts are kind of showered with the energy from the core. Now, it's not a bad thing, because all of the plants, all the creatures eat from the planet. They absorb energy from the planet itself, which bioluminescence is a reaction from that. It's a reaction from that consumption, right? Sorry, I'm drinking coffee as I talk. So, like I said, everything and anything will consume energy from the planet itself, which will yield a bioluminescence glow. The colors do depend on the life form itself, what type of the energy they're eating, and blah 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 blah, stuff like that, you know? I don't really know, I guess, the technical terms to use. Anyways, so spout rain. So under the spouts or near the spouts, there's going to be a thick, misty rain. You know, I don't know if anybody is. I haven't had. I don't think I've seen a misty rain in a while. Think about like a thick fog that just comes down from the spouts, right? A waterfall. That that's a good no. Waterfall is too much. It's a fog that just comes down from the spouts, and it's a constant. It's not necessarily hot because it's cooling down from being away from the main spout itself, right? So there's that. There's, I guess you can call, no, yeah, fog, like a fog bank that just rolls off of it, and when it hits the ground, it will start to die out. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Anyways, back to what we were talking about. So, just to clarify, mountain plants are going to be more earthy, forest plants are going to be more barky, plains more sleek, meant for speed, ocean, river is going to be more slimy, meant for the water. Now, the cave ones, cave plants are a little bit more interesting because it depends on how deep they go. Like in the mid, like barely under the crust. It depends on the biome they're in. If they're on the mountain side and they're underground, they're going to be more earthy than the ones above ground. Same thing for like the caves under forest is going to be more barky, but the caves under plains are going to lose their leaves, so there's going to be just a tangled mess of vines, pretty much, right? Depends on how deep they go. Now, the deepest point caves are going to go is going to be on that rare material line, right? There's going to be no caves or under that point because it's just going to be molten. Now, some creatures can survive that, but that's on the volcano side, not that deep. Not that deep at all. But you would think, how can they survive? Again, they eat from the planet itself. The deeper you go, the stronger the energy is. The richer it's going to be to feed. Now, the main place that this whole story is going to take place is under is going to be a world tree. There are multiple world trees, but this one is going to be the one we talk about the most. If you don't, the world tree eats just like everything else, but on a greater scale. And the fruit it bears reflects that, because the roots spread down to the lowest part of the crust that it can go, so they don't burn, right? So that fruit is very rich from the planet. Now, it's as rich or maybe a little bit richer than some of the food sources of the carnivorous style plants. Now, the carnivorous plants don't just eat other plant life forms, they also eat from the ground itself. But the energy they get from eating other plants is richer because it's already been processed and stuff like that, right? Less time for it to be processed. So it's just richer. Now, we'll talk more about the creatures themselves and what that entails, how they die, and stuff like that, you know. But for now, we're just gonna continue on before I start rambling on, because I will just ramble on about that if I don't keep myself in line. Like now, I'm rambling about rambling on what I shouldn't be rambling about. Still doing it. Bioluminescence. So, the stronger the bioluminescence isn't necessarily a good thing because it just makes it easier for things to see. It's just the bioluminescent strength is how rich the energy is that's flowing through their, I guess, vein. Let's just say veins. Flowing through their veins, right? The energy is coursing through it. It's pretty much pure. Now, again, there is no flying creatures, just mostly ground and under the ground, right? So there are some things that burrow, but not too many. Now the gravity of the planet is really hard to describe, right? Because it contains everything in our known universe, just on this single massive planet, right? And if you think about it, the Milky Way galaxy has a single massive black hole that everything is just spinning around it. And the more mass something has, the heavier it is. Now, if you ask, well, why doesn't it just collapse in on itself? Because you have a constant force pushing in and out. Like the antimatter exploding, creating. It's pretty much the force that's creating it, making it so it doesn't. It would not war find the ends. Of course, then everything would collapse in on itself and just go boom. Big bang. Right? Most of the stuff that's on the crust is from the crust down to the semi-molten layer from the crust to the molten layer that starts slightly seeping into the soup that is the matter and antimatter clashing is pretty much dark matter, right? It is holding everything in. That's pretty much its job. While this whole war between matter and antimatter clash, it really is just matter and matter clashing because there's no antimatter until there's a loser, right? So that's pretty much how the planet is what it is. There's no solid mass core. It's just the soup. I think I already talked about that. I did. I went a little bit more detail about it, for sure. So, most of the creatures, most of the plants, everything on the surface that's siphoning off energy from the core, I guess you can say that's radiating out because the planet is very radioactive, gamma radiation, or whatever radiation you want to talk about like that. Gamma. Let's just go with that. Solar radiation. But anyways, so that's pretty much where the bioluminescence comes from. Is feeding off of the planet itself, feeding off of the energy that's radiating from the matter war within. The richer it is, the brighter it is. Now, all the plants have a small to a great glow about them. The grass blades have a little bit of glow. You can see the veins in the trees that are carrying the resource up to its leaves and stuff like that. The fruit has its own glow. There's a bunch of things like that. The earth itself kind of has a kind of a glow to it. Not what's a good way? It's like what are those things? You will make them all the time. It's the liquid where you shake it and it has a little wavy to it. Kind of like that, not too much. It has a very faint wavy type glow. It's hard to explain. I can see it. I'm terrible at explaining. I know. But not everything does have a glow, though. The only time the Earth has that style glow when it's on a creature, then it will get its own flow from the creature itself. Some what's the word? Minerals can absorb and distribute this much, much better rather than just picking up a rock like iron or other metals like that. You know, things like that will have a little bit more, I guess, shine. Shine's the right word, right? Yeah, shine's the right word. Yeah. But it's not real iron, that's just the word I was using. Because again, this is all dark matter style matter. Materials. And not, well, no, not energy. Energy is radiating from the core itself. Dark matter does have its own energy, but that's a whole magic system that we will talk about later. Yes, there is a magic style system in place, which I'll talk about later because there's a lot more to it than just, well, I guess there's not too much, but we're going to talk about that later. There's like the creatures. We'll talk more about the individual creatures later. I already talked about the environments and what they'll have an effect on said creatures and stuff like that. But we're going to go back to talking about the spout, right? So the main place is going to be is under a world tree, right? That has a spout, not necessarily directly over it. It's like further. Oh, it's hard to say. It's close, right? You can see the mist fall coming off of the spout when it hits the ground. It doesn't burn anything around it, but it is a dense fog, and it just sizzles out as it spreads away, right? So there's that. That is a rich place full of energy. So the plants there, just like the plants under, like, deep underground, are going to be richer, more desirable, pretty much. More of a desirable place to live. There's a bunch of different, so main points that are going to want to, that are desired, are going to be a volcano, because it has a almost like a direct tap to energy flow from the soup, but on a more tame scale, right? The lava spews out, carrying some of that energy with it, living close but not too close to a spout because it's hot, very destructive. Living under a spout where the mist fall is a very desirable area, and world trees. So, volcano, world tree, and spouts are pretty much going to be a main spot that people are going to want to go, right? Main resource, good food, rich food are going to be there. So the things that are closer to those are going to be brighter, which is not necessarily a good thing, because then comes into play with the food chain. The carnivorous style plants are going to want to eat those style plants, right? Ones that live close to there. So it's a whole ecosystem. So that's in place. What else? What else? So there is a spout in the water, which just creates the hot water. But on the surface of the water is a big mist, right? Swimming in on ProThor is more difficult than you would think. So just think about flying. So what I'm getting at is, say, a plains, forest, or earth try to go into the water. They're not gonna drown or anything like that, but what they will do is sink like a rock. they won't be able to swim because it's not the environment they're meant for, right? They'll be able to spend some time in the water, but not too much. So, no, what am I saying? They won't drown. I was thinking of something else. So, the only ones that won't drown, so the ones on the surface will, right? The mountain, plains, forest, those guys will drown if they go into the water because they mostly breathe what's there. Now, the things that won't drown if they go in the water are the cave style plants because they don't really get to breathe as well, and river, ocean, lakes, just the slimy, watery ones, right? So those are the only two plants that won't drown if they go into the water. Now, the unique thing about the deep cave plants is that they can almost thrive anywhere because the ones that are really deep are already close to a hot magma source. Close enough, not necessarily touching it, but they would be able to thrive in next to a volcano, in the water. They just can't swim. That's the only thing they can't do. They go into the water. But the downside to that is they don't really have armor. They're not earthy. They're more, not necessarily streamlined, but they're just root. That's what they are. The really deep plant guys are just roots. That's where they come from, because all the roots of the other plants that are there, that's their environment, their roots. There's a bunch of different roots just going down there, that deep. Like the earth tree, the earth tree, world tree. So to sum up, we have earthy plants, like rocky plants that are from the mountains, and then under that is a sub, like not too deep. So you got the crust, and then the middle, and then the deep, right? So the middle ones are just going to be more earthy, or more of, oh yeah, just more earthy. You got the plains, that's two. Plains under that is going to be more viney, less leaves to get in the way because they just get knocked off and pulled off from running through the caves down there. So there's that subspecies of the plains. You got the forest. Then under them would be just really barky, more armored for the caves. Then you got the ocean. When the ocean caves plants, they're kind of just more slimy, to be honest. More that brine, like the lakes under lakes, right? That's where they thrive. So they survive in the lakes and the lakes and the lakes and the lakes. What I mean, you can look this up on. It's just a really thick, really salty, that not even the cave ones that I talked about that can thrive almost everywhere, they can't go into there as well. It's like a barrier that very little can even penetrate, But the ones that live there are rare, really rare and far in between that can't go out of water. They can go into the water above, but not out of water. They need to stay within the water. So they're stuck in the water pretty much. The subspecies of the ocean is there, but the ocean ones can't also go into the brine. They can't. It's too much for them. They can go out of water though, but they can't go into that. So there's that rare subspecies as well. And then you got the last one, the fifth one, which there is no Species above or below is the roots. Now, the root is going to be the main one we're going to follow. One tribe of the roots. That's where our story is going to take place. I'll go more what each of the ones will semi look like. It's going to be different for each one. There's more variety than you would think, but we're going to be following the roots, right? The fifth and last species that are deep within the crust. At the lowest point, we'll be following them. Anyways, so that's going to be what we follow. So, sum up for the story time that's going to happen later on. We're going to be following the roots. It's going to take place at the world tree, which we described, that is close to a mistfall, like real close. So it's two prime locations right next to each other. So the world tree fruit is even richer than you would have on a normal world tree that's just eating from the core. This one's also eating from the mistfall as well. So it has two forms of absorption. And that's the place that we will be take place. That's going to be the main story point that we'll be going. So today we talked about the planet ProThor itself. Tomorrow, I haven't really decided if we're going to, not tomorrow, sorry, next Monday, I haven't decided if we're going to talk about the creatures or the magic system that's in place. We'll decide that next time, unless you guys want to choose what you want to hear about first. The creatures, what they look like, and stuff like that, or the magic system. The magic system kind of has two parts to it, so we'll talk about that when it's the magic system time. But either way, I hope you guys enjoyed. I know I enjoyed talking about it. As you can tell, I started rambling and I started talking a little bit fast. I try to rein it back as much as I possibly can, which is a little difficult because I really enjoy talking about this stuff. It was fun. I like it. I'm happy I started doing this. But yeah, if you guys want to hear about those two, just let me know. If not, I'll pick next time I do it. But either way, thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody.